Welcome to Cohn and Krueger. That's Larry Krueger. I'm Grant Cohn. The title of the show is assessing Brock Purdy's first taste of adversity. I think we felt like maybe it was some of his worst moments in this game, but also some of his most clutch, heroic moments, and maybe his best performance. So I'd like to get the resident Brock Purdy expert, Larry Krueger. I'd like to get his take on what he saw from Brock, if he's still encouraged. We're going to get into more stuff than that. But first, I still want to say that our thoughts are deeply with Damar Hamlin at this time. There's been no update today. I'm hoping that tonight there will be an update with something positive. But I think that's what we're all thinking about, and prayers go out to Damar. Hope he's okay.
And, I think more than anything, the NFL players, it's a brotherhood. Those guys feel connected to each other, whether they know each other or not. And this is a pain and a hurt that's being felt, obviously, especially in Buffalo, but, league wide. And I guarantee you that tomorrow, when we go down to Santa Clara and we get a chance to talk to the players, there'll be a number of players that I'm sure will have very insightful things to say about how that affects them, how they view their mortality within the sport, how they view the risks and everything else. So it should be a very interesting day tomorrow.
Yeah, and you said league-wide. It almost feels like a nationwide tragedy. Anyone who knows anything about football, which is a lot of Americans, are really upset. Upset is not enough. Disturbed by this, and I think not just seeing it on TV, but then getting no real update almost 24 hours later. So I think a lot of the nation is sort of just sitting here in a really weird place, waiting for some good news. Hopefully we get it soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so Brock Purdy, the good story of the season for the 49ers. He's finally faced what felt like a real playoff game. He was down. It went back and forth. He was clutch. He brought the team back twice. Along the way, he missed some throws that he made in the past. What did you think of his performance in this game, Larry?
Well, you got to remember what we're looking at. We're looking at a rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
So that's his reality. He's a 23-year-old guy who's seeing everything for the first time, playing only his second road game. But I thought I'm not really, I'm looking at it from a personnel standpoint. I'm not necessarily looking at it as just a straight grade across the board, because you're right.
Mm-hmm.
There was some adversity here. He did miss some throws. He had a couple throws tipped that could have gone either way. But I just see glimpses of the most high-end quarterback that I've seen play for the Niners in years. The third and goal play where he pivots around quickly, glides kind of effortlessly to the right spot in the pocket, and then throws a dime to Kittle in the corner of the end zone, layering it over linebackers, but now keeping it at a level where Kittle didn't have to make some Herculean leap. That was a flat out dime, and
made it look easy.
That one stood out to me. And then the Ayuk off the play action on the 2nd and 6 on the first drive, I thought that was a dime. So, and then of course he had 4 scoring drives after they fell behind by 10. So I feel good about that as well. So I know, it's not always gonna be pretty. The bottom line is there's 17 games over 18 weeks. You're not going to have your A effort. I don't want to say the Niners took the Raiders lightly, but they're not up for that game the way they would be up for other games. And even in that situation, I thought he showed incredible plays. So I was very encouraged by what I saw from Brock.
I was too. The fact that he brought the team back twice at the end and made those beautiful throws, particularly the slants to the left to Ayuk.
The Ayuk, yeah. Late. Oh, yeah.
It was perfect. It was like Joe Montana throwing to Jerry Rice on slants. Perfect timing, perfect ball placement. What I did notice, though, was his worst throws were the ones down the field. The one to Kittle, he said he didn't see the DB. It was underthrown. Had he put 3 more yards on it, it would have been caught. The one to Jennings that was broken up at the goal line, had he put 2 more yards on it, it would have been caught. So does he not have the arm? I don't know. I'm not saying that. Maybe he just missed a couple throws, short in one game. That's something because it seemed like in the last few games he was nailing those. I'm thinking back to what was it against?
I think he kind of
Tampa.
admitted on the Kittle one, Grant, that
Yeah,
he kind of threw it to him,
laid it
like
up.
threw it up for him, and then
Yeah.
didn't see the defender in the middle of
Yes.
zone, kind of dropping deeper, and didn't have a count of him because
Yeah.
that's the player who made the play on the ball. But you're absolutely right. That throw's got to be 15 yards or
Yeah.
or 10 feet or 15 feet, I should say,
Yeah.
beyond where it was, where Kittle's got to catch that or that's got to fall incomplete.
Right.
And that ball hung for the defender. But there's also there's got to be some learning curve to playing the position.
Of course.
I didn't expect a beeline to the top, but he does have the best quarterback rating in the entire league since he started playing.
Right. I'm not pointing this out to say that, see, he's not a franchise quarterback. I'm pointing it out to say, look, we saw some what would be perceived as his weaknesses. They still scored 37 points. So what I want to say is, stepping back, even if you have questions about Brock, and this game brought those up, the offense is scoring 32.6 points per game with Brock on the field. There is no team averaging 32.6 points per game this year. The best is Kansas City at 29.1. So again, even if he has some weaknesses and can't always hit certain throws down the field, if this is what the offense is with him, he's not going anywhere. Anywhere. This is the guy.
I did an interview last week with Charvarius Ward. I asked him what he thought about Brock. He wasn't 3 words into his answer before he was like, the offense is scoring 32 a game. He's like, I love 32 a game. And it's like, yeah, if you're a corner and you look at 32 points a game as like a safety net that you didn't have before.
Yeah.
If you're scoring 20 a game, like they were early in the year or not even, you can't make a mistake. You can almost throw a shutout and still lose. So, yeah. I mean, every defensive player and offensive player is looking at that going, they can keep that rolling. They got a great shot to beat anybody they play.
I mean, this is a guy who's physically limited. And in his 5, I'm going to call the Miami game a start since he had every drive except the first one. 33 points, 35 points, 21 points, 37 points, 37 points. It's a juggernaut. This is the greatest show on. It's like the Rams in 99 or the Niners in 88 or something crazy. And all this talent's coming. Everyone looks like a genius now. Everyone looks great. Kittle's a Hall of Famer. Ayuk's a Hall of Famer. Kyle's a Hall of Famer. All because Brock is here. All because Brock is better than Jimmy. So yeah. What was the question? Will there be a quarterback competition? No, that's the wrong one. I guess that's the next one. I want to talk about the first taste of adversity. But the next question is,
if that's adversity,
yeah,
man,
right?
Bring on
37
more
points.
adversity.
Yes. Okay.
I mean, Brock looks great, and it's you're right. He's making Ayuk look good. Heck, I thought Kittle might have turned the wrong way on that one ball. If he turns the other way, it's another flat dime right in his lap. So, I mean,
He's also making McCaffrey look good as a runner. McCaffrey's a great receiver no matter what. But as a runner, he was averaging 4.2 yards per carry with Jimmy. Now he's averaging 5.1 yards per carry with Brock. That's a big deal.
I'll tell you the biggest, the one I think's become borderline unstoppable is when you combine the accuracy of Brock and the catch radius of Jennings.
Yeah.
You got something there, man. You got something there. Because
right.
Jennings is a big man with a huge catch radius.
Same with
Brock
Ayuk.
can put it kind of on the hands, and that combination means that's deadly.
Ayuk's got long arms too. That's a good call because now Brock can put it where only those guys can catch it. Niners under Garoppolo, 23.9 points per game. Purdy, league best, 32.6, says Luke Nicolo. That's right. It's a big difference. If that doesn't mean if that doesn't show you that he's the MVP of the offense, I don't know what does. That's a huge difference. All right, here's the question. If Brock keeps this up, if the offense keeps performing like this with him, if he keeps up this level of play and doesn't fall apart, doesn't have a straight up Brian Hoyer level collapse in the playoffs or Jimmy Garoppolo level collapse in the playoffs, will there even be a quarterback competition next year between him and Trey Lance?
Maybe in name, but it won't be much of a competition. I think, it wasn't Brock beat out Trey this year. Just he didn't get the job. I was there. I saw it. And then everybody who went to the preseason games, they saw that. I mean, what else are you going to evaluate? You got the practices and the games. Brock was better than Trey in camp, and he was better than Trey
Well,
in the preseason.
to be fair, Trey was
Better
going against Fred.
numbers.
Right. To be fair, Trey was going up against Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, and the starters, while Brock Purdy was going up against the third stringers. So it was hard
With
to tell
third
what.
stringers.
True. So it was hard to know what you were seeing. But his numbers were certainly better than Trey's. That's true. Certainly
And he
better
moved
than
the
Trey's.
team.
He did.
And remember that one play? I mean, it's preseason, so it's a little foggy, and I forget which game it was. But didn't he operate the 2-minute drill like kind of really effectively in one of those preseason games?
I believe he did.
So
here's the thing, though. I've never seen a real quarterback competition. There's so few reps. It seems like coaches would rather not split them up between starters. And also, it seems like they don't want the media and the fans to make it a spectacle and sort of decide the winner of the quarterback competition on their own. You know what I mean? It seems like I've never covered a quarterback competition, especially during the social media age. It seems like you're bringing a lot of attention to your team that coaches generally don't want. And again, if this is how Brock is operating the offense, he's operating exactly how Kyle wants him to operate it. He's putting up a lot of numbers. He's not making any money. Kyle gets all the credit. He's a genius. I just don't see why Kyle would change things up, especially when I don't think the locker room's begging for them to go back to Trey anyway.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think the answer is he won't. But then the question is, what exactly are they going to do? Are they going to? Because I don't know. I agree with you with things we've talked about in the past. Trey's value is not what it needs to be to even consider trading him. But I did make a list yesterday when I was filling in on 95.7 The Game on the quarterback needy teams, and there's a ton. There's a ton.
Well,
of
you
teams.
anticipated my next question.
7 or 8 for sure, and probably another 6 teams that may not stay with their guy and could be added to the quarterback mix. And there's Brady, there's Jimmy, there's 3 or 4 guys in the draft. So yeah, I think if the 49ers want to trade Trey Lance, there'll be a definite market for him.
Well, you anticipated my next question. If there is no quarterback competition and the Niners decide, in February that Brock Purdy is their starter, or if there is a quarterback competition and Lance loses it and they name Brock Purdy the starter in August, will they trade Trey? The question I'm asking the question. Last month I was like, no, it would be awful to do that. But there's another perspective. One, it would be the right thing to do for Trey. I mean, keeping him on the bench another year would really seriously jeopardize his career. And not only the right thing for him, if you're not committed to playing him and giving him an opportunity to develop, I don't know that he helps you. How much does he help you if he needs to play as a backup that you're only playing in practice? I guess those are two things. Also, the longer you keep him and you don't play him, doesn't his trade value go down? It's like the Jimmy Garoppolo thing. The longer you keep him without actually committing to playing him, the less you get. So if Brock's your guy, I don't see what keeping Trey another year does, unless you just want him to be a good backup, in which case, man, I don't think I'd be cool with that if I was Trey or his agent. I would be maybe privately trying to say, can you please trade me to someone that wants to play me?
I mean, that's the thing, too. It's all about timing, and it's all about communication. And this is where it's going to come down on Lynch to keep the communication lines open with Trey's agent. Let's say Brock plays great, and let's say they go to the Super Bowl and win it.
Right. That could very well happen.
Could happen.
He could be the Super Bowl MVP, Larry.
In his hometown at 23.
That's right.
But so
in which case, there's no quarterback competition. Let's be honest.
And even if he doesn't do that, even if he just wins 2 playoff games and loses in Philly because of circumstances, he's demonstrated he's the best quarterback they have, I think. Now, Trey, you could argue, didn't get enough time to demonstrate exactly what he is.
That is true.
So that's fair.
Is true.
But based on what we've seen, there's no doubt that Brock's had the highest completion percentage. Brock does things that Jimmy and Trey don't do. So they're really.
The question here is it what should the Niners do? The question here is what do you think they will do?
Well, I think you have to have an open dialogue with the agent and find out what they want, because what you said before, Grant, truer words have never been spoken. Trey Lance needs to play next year. I don't care where it is. Could be for Tampa. Could be for anyone. He has to be on the field next year for him. And yet the 49ers have to play the best quarterback. That's Brock Purdy. So then the question is, what's best for everybody? And that's where I think, the 49ers don't have a number one pick. I mean, I'm looking at this team going, what could make them a dynasty? Because they've got such great depth right now. They got great talent. What could truly get them to the next level? And I'm looking at that Notre Dame tight end, Michael Mayer. He's a superstar tight end. He's going to be picked in the 20s. And you can use Trey to get up in that pick and make that
or
pick.
Starting cornerback or starting offensive tackle.
Or starting corner, true number one, Clark Phillips, Utah, something like that.
Yeah. Or a quarterback, whatever. There are premium players at premium positions you could get. Now, I don't know that you're going to get a first-round pick if you trade Trey Lance, but
I think you will because of the supply and demand.
Okay,
like you're thinking that.
Okay, I'm thinking top
the league
50
already doesn't feel strong.
I don't know. I'm thinking top 50 for sure. Top 50 for sure. For sure. Okay, and maybe top 30. If you only want him as a backup, and he's not happy with that privately, and you want to do right by him because honestly, he's done right by. What has he done wrong? You're the one that drafted him. You're the one that put him in this weird situation. You're the one that sat him for a while. You're the one that's really put him behind the 8 ball in his career. If you don't want to just straight up ruin his career, maybe send him somewhere. You could get another backup quarterback. They just showed that they could get DTR from UC. I mean, there's a million. If you're looking for
Jake Haener from Fresno State.
Yeah, the experienced pro-ready quarterback who can be a backup, there's a million of those guys, and you just shown that you can draft them and develop them. And so it's something to think about.
It's just he's a very, very valuable player. It's like driving around town in a brand new, convertible Mercedes, and you got a brand new, Bentley, and it's just in the garage, and you just drive it on the weekends. It's like,
I just feel bad for Trey.
You really need the Bentley in the garage? Couldn't you just have a second car that was like maybe like a Jeep with like a bikini top or something? You know what I mean? I don't know. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Do you need a $200,000 car in your garage? Probably not. I mean, do you need a guy who you traded 3 picks for to be your backup and that and maybe you do because their quarterbacks get hurt all the time. But now it's also about the day that Trey, through his agent, says, I want to trade publicly, that means the communication broke down and he's not getting what he wants. And then his value really tanks because then you got to trade him at a loss. So I think the key is communicate, find out where they're at, make sure that you know where they're at, and then make a good decision that's best for everybody.
I just feel like Trey's a ramp-up quarterback. He's a project quarterback. That's the deal with him. He needs to play. And the Niners won't give him the opportunity. So it seems like maybe send him somewhere that's willing to give him the opportunity and replace him with a late-round pick who's pro-ready. Because the team is so good, if the quarterback has experience and is a good game manager, the team should elevate his play. I mean, they're doing it to an extent with Brock Purdy right now. He has a Pro Bowl weapon everywhere on the field. And until this last week, the best defense in the league. So maybe that's what you want to do. Maybe the Niners should just stay away from quarterbacks who need a few years of development from now on and just take guys who are ready and surround them with the best, cheap and ready, and surround them with the best team you can. Maybe that's their formula now. It's what Philly does. Their quarterbacks are cheap, very cheap.
I always thought it's interesting how the Niner fan base has reacted to this discussion too. It's like too soon for them, right? And it seems like the safe thing is like just our quarterbacks get hurt, hoard quarterbacks. Trey might be good. Don't trade Trey. But you know what? Trey has a chance to determine his own NFL career, and I think he's not Don Strock. He's not some career backup. It's like Tampa had Vinny Testaverde and Steve Young.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? They had to trade Steve Young. And that's the same thing. I think the Niners have 2 good young quarterbacks. And if Brock can really settle in and potentially either go to the Super Bowl or win it, the locker room is going to look at you like you're crazy if you go to anybody else but him next year.
Yeah. Here's the logic. If Brock Purdy is the franchise quarterback and Lance's trade value drops the longer he sits, then the right move is to trade him as soon as possible. Is that correct? I think those two things are true.
I think the right move is because you don't know Trey. We don't know Trey. Trey may absolutely be dead set on staying here, this
That would
this
change
is on
things.
Lynch. This is
That would
on
change
Lynch.
things.
What
Yeah,
does
he's got to
Lynch
figure that out.
want? I mean,
Yep.
what does Trey want? And it's up to Lynch to talk to the family and talk to the agent and figure out. I mean, nobody did anything to anybody. Trey got hurt, Brock got an opportunity, and he's running with it. And it looks like he's playing quarterback on a level that the other guys can't even get close to. So, I mean, you could have a competition if you want, but I can tell you right now that Brock's going to beat out those guys if it's a true open competition because he's more accurate.
And
He's
he'll have a playoff resume under his belt, and he runs the offense the way Kyle wants it run. It seems like what Trey could say, him and his agent could go to the Niners privately in the offseason and say, look, we never complained about anything. You sat him for the first year. He was a good soldier about it. You ran him between the tackles. He never complained about it. Now you want to make him the permanent backup behind Brock Purdy? Please. He's only been a good teammate here. Can you please trade him to someplace and not sabotage his career? Because it feels like at a certain point the Niners are trapping him, and it's not fair. And I hope that doesn't happen. So that's why I'm talking about this.
I think you
in an ideal world, you keep him as a backup for 3 years, but it just doesn't feel right.
You lay your cards on the table and you say, hey, you know what? We know that your value isn't today what it's going to be because we really believe in you. That's why we drafted you. So if you want to stick it out for another year and maybe build your value off the bench, if Brock gets hurt, we absolutely want to have you here. And we obviously can afford both quarterbacks. You're both on rookie deals. It's all about you, Trey. Do you want to be here as the number 2 and take whatever opportunities and get groomed under Kyle and our system and our coaches and see where it goes? Or do you want to go somewhere new and have the job all to yourself and start? And whatever he says, you do. If he says, I want to stay, then you keep him. And then you say, in an ideal world for us, Trey, we'd like to have
keep
you and Brock be here this year. Brock be healthy and have a great year. You not play. And then in the off season, we'd like to trade you once your value is a little bit higher in the eyes of some people. And maybe it would be higher if he played spot duty or was impressive in the preseason. I don't know, but
maybe be lower though. It's possible
it could be lower though.
Yeah, where teams go, well, he hasn't played because again, it's not just is he not good. It's he hasn't played since 2019. He hasn't played consistently since 2019.
Grant, it's worse than that. It's worse than that. I talked to the former GM of the Dolphins and Saints, Randy Mueller. Randy Mueller said that he wouldn't have even had Trey on his draft board based on how little college film there was of him at North Dakota State. So there are NFL personnel people that believe that he was a totally unproven entity at the college level, and that's before the pro career and the injuries and sitting on the bench this year.
Yeah. And so people that feel that way are only going to feel more that way the longer he sits. So the Niners are in a very difficult spot. They got to make the right decision here because they could have a depreciating asset and they could be the ones ruining this. Or maybe they trade him. He ends up being great. Brock Purdy ends up being, you know what I mean? They got to really figure this out. It's very interesting.
It's high stakes poker.
Absolutely. Wave 9 Mystic says, Grant, the defense had multiple takeaways. Jimmy would have gotten field goals, but I'd credit the D for like 14 points. Credit to Brock, but the D is good. That is true. They did set up some scores. They absolutely did.
Kerry Hyder's got a terrific motor. Nobody knows who he is. He can play any spot on the defensive line. He's the smartest D lineman they have, and he's probably not even 100% or close to it. And he bats that ball into the sky, and Drake Jackson picks it off. That was a huge, huge play.
Marcus Adams says, first 49ers home game for me this week. Any tips, tricks for Levi's Stadium? We'll be in section 136. Always great work, you two. Thanks. Keep it up. You got any tips?
That's cool. Enjoy yourself. I would say get there early and enjoy the parking lot. Now, I don't know what the rain is going to be like, but be ready for rain this weekend. But yeah, go out in the parking lot, man. If I didn't do the pregame show, man, I'd be hanging in the lot and chopping it up with Niner fans because it's a great group and they're having a good old time. They're throwing back Patron. They're cooking all kinds of food. They're getting it done. They're getting it done in the pregame. So I would hang out there. As far as the stadium goes, I mean, I think the stadium's beautiful inside. I'm not sure where you can go exactly, but maybe Grant has more info on that.
I just go to the press box. I'm not really an expert on the game day experience, but I will say that the reason the Niners are in Santa Clara and not south of Market is they wanted a place that fans could tailgate. So I'm with Larry on that. Get there early and do the tailgating experience because looks like it's a lot of fun, and I've never done it. Zach says, what's your ideal game plan Sunday, Grant? In preparation for the playoffs, do you play Debo? CMC also loves seeing Purdy play from behind. We have a QB. Larry, you take this one.
Okay. I don't want to see CMC.
Yeah.
I want to win this game with JP Mason and Ty Davis Price and Tevin Coleman and Paul Hofer and Delvin, and Roger Craig and Ricky Pat. Anybody
Derek
but
Lavelle.
CMC.
Hell yeah.
Derek Laville
Yeah.
and Garrison Hurst. And don't run CMC. Win this game without CMC. It's the freak. CMC, if you get him 100% for the playoffs, your chances of winning the Super Bowl are massive. If he's dinged up because he's out there on a sore ankle and he takes a bunch of hits and he gets concussed or whatever, and it's this rough thing, you're going to get CMC at like 50, 60% of what he normally is, and that's not going to be enough for this run. Give him the off week just in case. I mean, there's a chance if the Niners win and the Eagles lose, the Niners will have the bye week. But there's a chance that that doesn't happen. And that means they're probably going to have to play a playoff game, and you have to have McCaffrey 100% for it. So win this game without him this week. And I wouldn't play Debo either. But I would talk to Debo and ask him how he feels because he might be a little rusty and he may want to get out there for a little bit. But I don't think I would do that. I think I would feature guys like Ray and Danny Gray.
Jennings
and
Mason.
Let them, let the youth carry the water here in week 18.
Davis Price, actually, his last few carries have been pretty decent. Give him some more opportunities.
He runs people over. He runs with power.
Yep.
I like Davis Price. He's not one of those guys that you can just he's going down. If he gets to the second level, he's going to hurt you. He's going to bury you.
Yeah. Ryan Blocker says, loving Purdy and have faith in Lance, but as a fellow Bruin, I'd love to see the Niners pick up DTR next year too. I think he'd fit in great with our Niner injury luck. He'd be a fit. What happened in that bowl game, man?
Did you watch UCLA?
Yeah.
No, I didn't watch UCLA in that bowl game. But I've seen a lot of DTR because I've been doing the Stanford pregame show for the last few years.
What do you think?
He's incredibly athletic.
Yeah,
he's not thick.
Small.
He's lean.
Yeah,
but he's fast and he's smart and he makes some plays where you'd say he's accurate. There's other plays that you're like, what the hell? Where did that come from? So his accuracy is a little bit spotty, probably tied to his mechanics. But what he's got as far as off schedule movement ability and creative ability, if you put him in an offense like this that had a bunch of weapons, I think he would be a terrific number 2 quarterback because you got to defend his speed and he's played a lot of football. He's pretty good. I like him.
Yeah,
he's not going to be a high pick though.
No, and he's got a strong arm too. He kind of reminds me of Kyler. I mean, he's not as good of an athlete as Kyler, but that's kind of his play style. And I'd like to see him, instead of being in that Chip Kelly, Cliff Kingsbury style spread, I'd like to see a quarterback like that play for Kyle where they're doing play action under center because and actually moving the pocket left and right. That's my thing with the spread offense is quarterback stationary. You're not moving him around. He's just getting the ball and rocking and firing. I think. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I like to see DTR
exciting, though. He's a pretty exciting player. If anybody hasn't seen DTR, go put in the tape. He's not the biggest guy. I mean, you're talking about he's 6'1", about 210 pounds, but he's thrown for over 3,000 yards this year, 27 touchdowns, 10 picks.
Look at his
he's
rushing
been pretty
numbers.
good.
Yeah, and he doesn't have like all-pro wide receivers. I mean, all-American wide receivers at UCLA. Wave 9 Mystic says, Brock isn't him, Larry. You'll see when he has to go up against a real defense. Green Bay has a stacked secondary. Rasul Douglas, Jair Alexander, Eric Stokes, Darnell Savage, Adrian Amos, also Hall of Fame quarterback. Well, we shall see.
Well, we'll see. That's why this week means a lot because the Niners could have the bye or they could have the Green Bay Packers. And I agree. Green Bay is dangerous right now. And Watson's super fast and Dobbs is healthy. And, Rodgers the Hall of Famer. And you're right. They got a killer secondary. Savage is big time. And you just saw the other guy shut down. Alexander just shut off the water for Justin
Tyreek.
Jefferson. So, yeah, it's going to be a challenge.
Mac Daddy says, I'll do what Bill Walsh said years ago and draft a quarterback every single year till we find one. That way everyone is on the bubble to produce. Yeah, I like it. I think they should draft another quarterback this year. And I think if they do draft another quarterback, that might sort of indicate their plans for Trey.
I'll tell you what I would do if I'm John Lynch. The guy, whoever was the guy who decided that Brock was a good prospect, he gets a pick. He gets a 7th round pick. They got like 3 of them, right? Yeah. You got a 7th round pick. Who's your 7th round quarterback? Go for it. Whoever you want, that's who we're taking.
Tech says Trey got drafted the worst situation, not Fields. Yeah, different ends of the spectrum. Fields got drafted by a bad team. Lance's team was too good. Too good for him. They weren't willing to trust the process. They weren't willing to do a ramp-up quarterback. They weren't. Other teams would be.
I mean, before we say they weren't, I don't think we are either. I don't think the fan base is. I don't think the locker room is. I don't think just this team's ready to win 2 years ago, and they haven't gotten it done, and they're feeling that frustration, and they can't win a Super Bowl fast enough.
Right.
And Trey needs a 20 to 25 game ramp up period where it doesn't matter, necessarily. And it's like that's just not going to happen here right now.
It's not feasible. Yeah. Niners Faithful said, if BP wins a Super Bowl and someone offers a 1st, 2nd, and 3rd for Trey, would you?
Of course.
A 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, huh? Yeah. Kyle Green says, I'm coming to SF from South Carolina to watch my first home game. Do you have any suggestions of good places to eat? Love the show. You're going to San Francisco? Nice.
Yeah, what kind of food do you want? You name it.
Well,
I got all kinds of restaurant places.
It's crab season, so you might do yourself a favor and have some Dungeness crab in San Francisco. You could go Italian and go to any number of places in North Beach. Pick a place in North Beach, get Chipino. They'll have it. Or you could go to Chinatown. I personally like RNG Lounge and get the salt and pepper crab. Either way, you're going to have a great time. Where's your go-to crab place?
I've gone to a bunch of crab feeds, like for out here in the burbs for like teams and that kind of thing. But I don't think I've had crab in a restaurant in the city. I probably should. That's probably on my bucket list now.
Kyle, take Larry with you. You guys got to go together. David says, I just watched a bunch of film of Purdy, and I see why he was the last pick in the draft. He had a funky delivery and a very slow fastball. Wow, has he improved in a short time. Keep Trey and teach him.
There was a great article on Brock, how leading into the draft, he added like 5 miles an hour to his passes by working with this group. I think it was in Arizona, on just all of his mechanics of his throw, from his elbow placement to his step to his release. And he generated 5 more miles per hour on his throws than he did when he was at Iowa State. I had the same takeaway. When I was at Iowa State, I thought, man, there's too many throws that you looked at and said, that's not NFL. That's not NFL velocity. But he improved his velocity. He understood the need for it. All you need to know about Brock is that he's smart as hell, and he is competitive as anybody there is. And that right there is, you're well ahead of the game if you're super smart and you're insanely competitive. He's got the smart, tough, competitive gene.
Yeah. And he has all this experience that most young quarterbacks don't have. And it makes him kind of unique. Juwan Jennings reminds me of Anquan Bolden. I see what you mean. E.T. Absolutely. I just think he's probably a better route runner than Bolden. Bolden, to me, would just run into people. He was like 230 pounds, and people would just bounce off of him. And he would just post up in the middle of the field and catch passes. I've never seen anyone do it like Bolden. He was great.
Bolden was great. Player. He beat the Niners in the Super Bowl in New Orleans.
I would say he's a Hall of Fame player for that. He was the number 1 receiver on a Super Bowl team that won with offense that year. Anquan, to me, was Hall of Famer. He probably doesn't have the numbers for it. Great player.
Week 1 against the Packers, Kaepernick, he had 200 and something yards.
He was the only guy him and Crabtree were the only guy who could really had the hand strength to catch Kaepernick's throws consistently. That guy threw hard. Yeah. Bolden would dominate with Trey Lance. Purdy is what Kyle Shanahan hoped Manziel would have been, even though Johnny was faster. I don't think Kyle wanted any part of Johnny Manziel at any time. at any time.
That'd be a great question to ask him tomorrow. Hey, is Purdy kind of, what you hoped Manziel would have become? He'd give you the craziest look, like, where the hell is that coming from?
And how do I answer this without offending multiple people?
Right.
Yeah, but no, I see what you mean. He kind of is built like Manziel. He's like if Manziel were good. I see what you mean by that. I totally see what you mean by that. He's the good version of Manziel.
Purdy is what happens if Manziel didn't go out and party with his friends.
He also seems kind of like what the Jets were hoping they were getting in Zach Wilson. Although I know Zach has a stronger arm, but damn, Zach, what happened? Maybe the Niners could get Zach. No.
Well, the Jets are moving him. Would you take Zach how about drive a super hard bargain? Zach and a number 1 for Trey. Take it or leave it, Salah.
Yeah. How does the NFL play out 1 through 3 AFC seeds? You take it away.
I don't know. I mean, right now, Kansas City's the 1?
Yeah.
Maybe they just remain the 1? Maybe.
I don't know what last night's game suspension does to this. I haven't thought about that. We're thinking about DeMar, not that. So I don't know.
I know, seriously, it was a huge game yesterday, but what we saw was so dramatic that I never even really gave that any thought either. Like, how are they going to do this? What are they going to do here? It's like, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, we just saw something that was a true tragedy potentially. And he's not out of the woods yet, at least not to my knowledge.
No, we haven't gotten an update. Jorge says, let's not forget Jimmy's first 5 games or Nick Foles. BP could just be the lightning in a bottle for a bit. Keep Trey Lance and let them compete, praying for DeMar. That's a legit point. We don't know.
Yeah, I mean, here's the only thing I'll say on that. That is true. Jimmy got off to a hot start. And you could say the same thing about Kaepernick, right? He got off to a 5 or 6 game start that was pretty good. But, I mean, Purdy has literally done this. He took Iowa State to 4 bowl games. He had big numbers at Iowa State. I mean, Iowa State's not one of the powerhouse teams in the Big 12, if you haven't noticed. So, and then he looked good all through minicamp, and he looked good all through training camp. And it's like nobody wanted to really watch it because they were just they had decided before practice who was better.
And to be fair, people were focused
really looking at it.
People were focused on Trey. It was all about Trey. But yeah.
And then Brock was right there, believe me, making the same passes, but making them with more consistent accuracy, albeit less velocity.
I will say this. I could tell that Brock was better than Nate Sudfeld. That was clear. I knew it. All right. Sean says, this feels like a mistake. Purdy needs at least a year to know. This team is stacked. It would be dumb to commit to him and shop Trey off.
Okay, so all I'd say, Sean, is what do you need to see, and when will you be convinced?
Yeah.
Because you can play this game all the way through. You can be like, you know what, they got the Super Bowl, but man, it's only one Super Bowl, and you don't know how he's going to bounce back off of it. You know what I mean? We could play this game forever. How long can the Niners hold Trey Lance hostage from his career?
Yes.
It can't continue.
That is such a good way they're holding him hostage from his career. And again, the longer he sits, it's possible the lower his trade value goes because this is a guy who hasn't played consistently since he was 19. So there are a lot of variables here that the Niners have to consider. I understand how Sean feels. It's how I felt at first. But I keep looking at this like, man, you put him on the bench again. What are you doing to this poor guy? What are you doing to this poor guy? It's not fair already. Any team that drafted Trey should have been 100% committed to the building process. And the Niners weren't. Okay, fine. At what point do you let him go? It's hostage. It's a hostage situation. Dog day afternoon.
Unless that's why you got to communicate with him because maybe he doesn't view it as such. Maybe he feels that Shanahan is such an awesome coach and that the Niners are such an awesome organization that he absolutely just doesn't want to go anywhere and he'll let the chips fall and he's going to be a good soldier if he loses out to Brock. If that's the situation, then maybe you keep him. But even so, even in that situation, you're only really keeping him for a year because eventually he's got to play.
And maybe he feels, look, good for Brock. When I get my opportunity, I'm going to kill it too. The team's good. I'll be ready. Yeah, because, frankly, he never played with McCaffrey. He played one game with George Kittle. He won that game. He hasn't really played with the full deck of cards the way Brock Purdy has, and maybe he's thinking, I'm not going anywhere. They're going to ship me off to freaking Houston so I can fit. No. I'm staying here. I'll get my opportunity. This team is stacked. I'll show them. Maybe that's his mentality, in which case, good for the Niners. Good for the Niners. I mean, I think that was Jimmy's mentality. The Niners were trying to push him out the door. He was like, no, this team is stacked. I'm going to continue putting up numbers on this team and making money. You're not pushing me out of here. And
also, the same way everybody talks in this league about your negative traits, people talk about your good traits. So the rest of the league knows exactly what I know and what you know and what people here in San Francisco know, which is that Trey is a great kid, that Trey is a good prospect, that he's liked by the other players. He's not going to be a Zach Wilson in New York. They're going to love him in New York.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying? He's a team guy. This guy's a really high character guy. So everybody knows that. So this idea that, well, he didn't look great in some of the preseason games. The best they can get is a 4th-round pick. You're high. You're high if you think they're getting a 4th-round pick. They're getting far more than that if they decide to trade him.
Flavor Reborn Restoration says CMC is a G. Cool, calculated, big ups, TMs, and rarely celebrates his games. Big ups teammates and rarely celebrates his gains. Niners need to put a ring on it if they like it. Yeah, I really appreciate his professionalism, McCaffrey.
He's tough,
David,
too.
Tough. David says if the Niners win with Brock, would they consider trading Brock? He'll net much more and will give Kyle Shanahan the time needed to properly develop Trey.
They'll get offers, I'm sure.
It would be funny to. What do you think if he wins a Super Bowl? What is his trade value?
A lot. 23-year-old Super Bowl winning quarterback who makes no money on a rookie deal.
But if you have a quarterback who runs the offense the way you want it run and wins a Super Bowl, you don't trade that guy.
Right.
You don't bench that guy.
Shanahan's not trading Brock.
I don't think so. Dustin the Gale says trading Trey before next season feels like when we paid Jimmy after 6 games.
Yeah, you're right. But Trey has a say in this. So
it's different though because you got Brock, unless you don't got Brock. Larry is the man. He told us about Purdy. I agree. Finesse the kid. It's smart. You want to be the team that trades away Steve Young. Not saying Trey is that, but come on, Brock is fool's gold, man. Kyle will trade Brock back to Miami. Here's the thing, though. If you have young Montana and young Steve, you got to trade young Steve. This is the way it is. If they're the same age, I'm just saying. So, but that's, I don't know. We don't know if that's the case right now.
I know. It's wild, though, isn't it?
It is wild. It's great. John says Brock going to rock with his chicken out and win the shit. I think that's what he meant. Chicken. Justin says if Brock plays like last week, does he beat Buffalo?
It's a good question. Buffalo doesn't have Josh Jacobs or Devontae.
I don't think it was his best game. I think he's played better.
No, it wasn't his best game.
It wasn't his best game.
But guys, wait a second. Before we start condemning this guy,
I'm not
he
condemning
threw some dimes.
He did.
He threw dimes.
Clutch.
First of all, it seemed like the Niners went months before Jimmy would throw touchdown passes into the end zone. We're seeing it with regularity now.
True. That's a good point. Jimmy would just throw like in front of the end. Hey, knife your way in there. What do you mean? Ryan Blocker says bowl game was rough. Not to make this about UCLA, but Charbonnet could be a great addition to the backfield. Charbonnet. So Charbonnet didn't play in the game, right? And so DTR, he just threw 3 picks. Yeah, that was bad. And then he left the game. He was hurt. I don't know. But yeah, Charbonnet's really good.
Though. He's 220 pounds.
Yeah. Nicolo Credit says, one thing I noticed, Purdy never looked scared in the pocket. I remember seeing Jimmy visibly shaking in big games. Brock, the Rock, won't crack. Yeah, he does seem very confident. I like his poise in the pocket. I need to see him adjust to the NFL adjusting. That is true. That's
fair. That's fair.
That is true. It's a good point. Sean, it's a really interesting discussion, and I think there's good points on both sides, and we're going to probably be having this discussion for the next at least 2 months. So
yeah, hopefully maybe we'll do it in Arizona the week, maybe Glendale in February.
Sean says, I saw a tweet from a national reporter that Brock throws all over the field except deep right. Any thoughts as to why? I'm surprised he's going cross-field more than deep right. I've seen that passing chart. It's interesting. It looks like a small sample size, but I also noticed that at the end of the game, he was nailing Ayuk on the left, slants to the left. He's really good at throwing to the left. What do you think is up with this right thing?
Well, I think it's interesting. One of the things, a major component of every NFL offense is the kind of with a right-handed quarterback is the roll right, throw back. And so when you're throwing back to the middle of the field or the other side of the field. You're not throwing. It's the roll. You're kind of moving the defense and you're throwing back. And so you make the defense flows with you to your throw hand side. And then as they're flowing to you, you find somebody going the other way, and it's a big play. So I think you see a lot more roll right throwback with a right-handed quarterback, which would mean he wouldn't throw it deep on the right side of the field. That's the only thing I can say that I feel like makes any sense of that. It also could be just the first time I read that stat or saw the graphic, I thought, you know what, kind of a small sample size. Let's see 6, 7, 8 games before we really say he can't make a certain throw.
Well, one thing I've noticed with the rollouts with Purdy is Shanahan makes him roll left a lot for a few reasons. One, you're expecting the right-handed quarterback to roll right. It's an easier throw. So I think he feels like it's catching defenses off guard. Purdy can do it, and it gets you away from McGlinchey. No offense, but you don't want to be that close to Mike McGlinchey. So it seems like if your quarterback can throw on the move, running left, you want him doing that. Maybe that's why he's got so many throws to the left.
Well, the only thing about that is he's really got to have enough time to set his feet. Otherwise, it's like that's almost an impossible throw. But that's what I'm saying. That what you just described there, Grant, was exactly the play that scored the touchdown to Kittle. He did a quick pivot to his left and then flipped his hips, set his feet, and just layered a perfect dime, with great trajectory right over the linebacker.
Right.
And but still low enough for Kittle. Kittle didn't even have to jump for it. I mean, it was a dime.
But the deep throw to Kittle, it was a roll left, throwback right, underthrown. And then the one to Jennings at the goal line, it was a fade on the right, a little underthrown. So I don't know. Maybe there is something to this. It's interesting, though, because I'm always accustomed to right-handed quarterbacks throwing better to the right than to the left. It's harder to throw to the left. You don't see it as well. You got to open your hips. Purdy's really good at it. Jimmy was really good at it. I don't actually know which Trey does better.
The one thing it is interesting about Trey being 6'4" or whatever, 6'3", 225, Purdy being the undersized guy. I looked up the hand size. Purdy goes 9.5 on the hands, and I think Trey's like 9 and 8 or 7.
That's surprising.
7.5 or was it 9.5 versus 9.5 versus 9.25. So
yeah, Brock Purdy, he walks up to the podium, and I'm like, man, this dude is my size. I could be an NFL quarterback, but then he's got really big hands, and I'm like, why can't I have 9.5-inch hands? That's amazing. Good for Brock. Ben Poole says 20 years of swinging and missing on quarterbacks. I couldn't handle it if they traded Trey Lance and he turns into Josh Allen 2.0. Rodgers loved Young, sat for years.
Okay. I hear you, but it's up to Trey too, right?
I hear you. Yep. That is another factor. What Trey wants to do.
You can't have
Poppy. Thank you.
Can't be angry in the corner of the locker room. That's not going to be a good situation.
And again, that doesn't seem like his personality.
It doesn't seem like him.
At the same time, like, I don't know.
He's got to play.
It just seems wrong. It just seems wrong to ask him to even do it. Wave 9 Mystic says losing in the first round of the playoffs gives Kyle his out to start trade next year. I was on my third stringer type of out. You know what I'm saying, Grant? Absolutely. If they lose in the first round and Brock doesn't play great, the Niners, I have no idea what they're going to do. They could do whatever they want at that point. They could do whatever they want. Yo, Krueger, where do you get that sick flag? Says Papi Chulo.
Oh yeah, I'm doing the 49er show on TalkSport, the pre and post game show on TalkSport, and so now I've got a little bit of a UK following, and one of the UK fan groups sent me that flag, and then I got another one here that's pretty cool too. See if I can hold this one up. This is pretty cool. UK 49er flags, kind of cool. Big 49er. So I can hang those in the background from time to time.
Jaws says at least wait until the season is over to praise BP13. To a certain extent, I know what you mean. This team's legacy is going to be built in the playoffs. Niners daddy says it's going to suck to trade Trey and him be elite. That would really suck. They better be sure about what they're doing. Saul Goodman says, LOL, Niner fans have been starved of a great quarterback for so long. We're obsessed with this story this season, and nobody knows what they want.
That makes me laugh, but it kind of is true.
They have elite quarterback play staring them in the face right now, and Niner fans are like, well, what do we do? Is this it? Like, right now, this is it.
It feels good, though. I mean, when Brock drops back to pass, you got to admit it. You're thinking what I'm thinking, which is good things are probably going to come next. Where Jimmy...
At no point did I think the Niners were going to lose to the Raiders. At no point did I think they were going to lose to the Raiders.
And
Never.
Also, Jimmy... we can get more into the Raider game. I mean, the defense struggled against Stidham. Devontae's a star. Jacobs is a star. Waller's a star. The Raiders are, McDaniels, if it wasn't on his first year, he should be canned. You guys got some of the greatest talent. You got Crosby and Chandler Jones and those offensive weapons, and your double-digit losses. I mean, the Raiders are pathetic coached.
Well, I just want to say real quick, I feel like there's some carryover between the Niners and the Raiders, between Shanahan and McDaniels, and between Jimmy and Carr. All of a sudden, you take Carr off that team, and they look good on offense. Jared's, all of a sudden, I'm thinking, Stidham look like they're Purdy. Now they have to seriously take Jared Stidham seriously. That guy looked good. He can move too. He's got a big arm.
He's got a big arm, and he's not a mover like Purdy, but he's a fast runner. Yeah. And I'll tell you what I liked is that he's confident. He knows the offense because he's been in New England's offense, and so he knows this offense better than anybody, and it looks like it.
Lucas says, I love Brock as much as the next guy, but I don't see this experiment working out as soon as next year. Doubt defenses will take long to figure him out, just like Jimmy Garoppolo, excited for a competition next year. Here's the thing, though. Figuring him out. Dude, he has so much talent around him. It's like figuring him out means shutting down George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey and Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel and Jawan Jennings on the same play. Like, he doesn't have to be the greatest quarterback ever. He has so many good options. It's almost like he can't miss. That's the way I look at it.
And what's to figure out? I mean, would you be saying – all you got to say is this. Would you be saying that if he were doing exactly the same thing, but he was 6'4"? Probably
Good
not.
Question. Good question. Flavor Reborn says BP had many teachable moments in LV. What would be your guys' primary talking points?
You see, I probably made a few notes to myself here.
My primary talking points for him in this game. I guess it would be to set your feet on the deep throws and let it rip, and don't just try to, hit the guy. Try to hit him in stride. Don't make him slow down. Like that's the Tua thing, where your guys are like stopping and waiting for your deep balls. Like you got to get it out there. I think you have the arm strength to do it. That would be one thing.
I mean, the way the game was interesting from the standpoint of he completed 70% in the first half, but for only 38 yards.
That's right.
And then he threw for 250 yards in the second half.
Yeah.
I guess I would ask him a little bit about why he felt like the passing yards were so down in that first half. And also I would just emphasize to him that, this was the aberration. You have the number one defense in pro football. Take care of the ball. I don't think Green Bay or any of these lesser light teams in the playoffs in the NFC can take the Niners down if Brock takes care of the football. That simple thing. I think that needs to be the priority.
Also, don't fall in love with McCaffrey. He's always there for you. You can always go to Christian McCaffrey, great player. Don't fall in love with him because good things happen when you go to Ayuk. Good things happen when you go to Jennings. Good things happen when you go to Ray. You can't let those guys go a quarter, a half without getting the ball. They got to be involved too, because when you are the true point guard out there and you're spreading the ball around, defenses won't know who to take away. They're going to be focused on Kittle, Deebo, Ayuk, or whoever, and you're going to have one-on-one matchups. Don't force it. I felt like he forced it a little bit in this game. Kittle at the goal line, a couple examples. So he should have wide open. He should not wide open guys, but good one-on-one matchups he can throw to consistently.
Take care of the ball. I would say take care of the football in the middle of the field, because you just bank that there's going to be some zones and they're going to try to trick you, and they're going to try to drop guys, that you're not looking at. So I mean, be aggressive, but take care of the football in the middle of the field, especially.
Marky Mark says rumors Jim Harbaugh to the Broncos. It'll be funny to see if Wilson can handle his personality.
See if he goes there.
I wouldn't want to coach Russell Wilson right now. Devontae Adams is so good that he completes catches without catching the ball. NYC got that call wrong.
Probably, but that's another screwed up NFL thing where we're at the discretion of the camera angles and the timing. Like, we had the right angle, but the camera was too high. By the time it got down, you couldn't tell if you couldn't tell. You know what I mean? It was like, I felt like we just didn't have the right camera angle at the right time.
F you, Joe Boo. I do it myself. I love you, man. But dude, it's freaking Tuesday. The game was 2 days ago. The Niners won. What are we doing, man? Yes, the refs are no good in the NFL. They're not full-time employees. They should be. It should be better. But can we – I hate doing the ref conversation. I don't do ref quality control. That is not my job. It could be your job, but I'm Niners quality control. I'm sorry.
But thanks for the $5, right?
I feel FUW, you're a good guy. I like you. But I can't join that conversation. I'm just sitting out. Bay Area. Hey, Grant, do you still think the Niners made a mistake in trading for CMC and trading? Yes, huge mistake, and it's going to cost them their entire season. Jeez. Yeah, okay.
Man,
all right, I was wrong.
People got receipts. I mean, people are coming at you.
Can I just say before we move on that my problem was, one, the Niners can't keep their guys healthy. Let's see them keep Christian McCaffrey healthy for a couple more years. But so far, so good. He's the one running back who stays healthy on this team. Amazing. The other thing was I felt that even he wouldn't bring Jimmy Garoppolo a Lombardi trophy. And I still feel that I was right about that. But you know what? We'll never know because it's Brock time. It's Brock time. Had I known that the Niners had freaking Kurt Warner on the bench, I'd say, yeah, bring in all the great players. Absolutely.
One media guy I did an interview with the day before the trade deadline on the field. And I said, are the Niners going to trade for Christian McCaffrey? And he goes, no. And I go, why not? And he goes, because they don't need him. I'm like, all right.
That's how I felt.
That's it.
That's how I felt. Well, I guess, as my dad would say, he couldn't hurt. Okay. Yeah. Do you think the 49ers will re-sign Mike McGlinchey this offseason? He's coming off one of the best performances of his career, holding Max Crosby to basically nothing. What do you think?
Well, if it's up to Jed, yes, because I think Jed really
Notre
likes
Dame.
Notre Dame. It's up to Lynch, probably yes, because I think he, really likes him, took him in the top 10. But I'd have to look at their cap and see he's definitely playing hurt and playing some of his best football. And I know he's going to get an offer that's going to be far more than what the 49ers want to pay. So I'll say that they may say they want to re-sign him and they'll be in the market to re-sign him. But I think he goes east for bigger money.
You think they're going to find someone cheaper than McGlinchey?
I think they could find a developmental player. I mean, they could go with a Jalen Moore. I mean, they could move. Okay. They could go with a right guard and move Spencer Burford to right tackle.
True.
He played right tackle at UTSA. I asked him what he thought his best spot was. He says he's comfortable at right tackle.
Good to know. I hope they don't bring back Mike McGlinchey. I think they could do better, whether it's for cheaper or for more money. I mean, if they go for the free agent route, they could get Caleb McGarry, who's been in the league just as long. He's with Atlanta. I think he's a better player. And the way I look at it is, now that Jimmy's leaving and the Niners are going ultra cheap at quarterback, they should be able to afford a higher paid right tackle. They should be able to splurge at some of these positions. I think they can do better than Mike. And for
I like
people to
Caleb
say like
McGarry, but I think he's got kind of shorter arms. You have to look at
fine by me. I'll take him over McGlinchey. But I mean, if they feel like Spencer Burford is an even better value and he's young and cheap and he has upside, great. Whatever.
I'll say this.
I'm into it.
I think Zakelj is a starting right guard.
Okay.
And I think I would not be surprised if the right side were Zakelj and Burford and they drafted somebody and let McGlinchey go. That would not shock me at all.
Sounds good to me. I like it. I think it's time to move on. Another question. Name the team the Niners are most likely to face in the first round of the playoffs or in their first playoff game.
Green Bay.
It's
Green Bay. I already kind of mapped it out. I was talking to my kid about this, trying to put my hands around this playoff picture, and I finally feel like I've got a good handle on it. So if the Niners win this week and Philly loses, Niners are the 1 seed, right, and would get the first round bye. If that doesn't happen, the Niners are likely to be the 2 seed, with Minnesota being the 3, Giants being the 6. They would play each other. Tampa and Dallas are the 4-5. Niners would be the 2 seed. Green Bay would be the 7 seed. They would take on Green Bay. And then, I think the Giants are going to beat Minnesota. So then it would be Giants, Philly in round 2, and the Niners would get the winner of Tampa, Dallas. So I think that's the most likely. Green Bay in round one, and the Tampa Dallas winner in round two, unless or if the I should say that's the way it would shake out. So and then maybe Philly at the end. So I don't know. I mean, Philly in the NFC Championship game, or if the Niners are the one seed, then Dallas. If Dallas wins and Philly loses, which Philly would have to lose to be the one seed, Dallas would be the two. Philly could fall to the five. So then it would be Green Bay, Dallas in the first round, Minnesota Giants, and then Tampa would take on Philly, and the Niners would get the lowest remaining seed in the divisional round, which could be Green Bay if they upset Dallas, or then it could be the Giants if they upset Minnesota, or then if neither of those things happen, it's Philadelphia in round two.
Let's focus on Green Bay since that's the team the Niners are most likely to face. How do you think the Niners match up with Green Bay?
Not particularly well. I don't like that matchup at all, and here's why: because you've got Rodgers playing. The Green Bay's been playing like playoffs basically for over a month. It's now at a point where their rookie receivers are starting to play. Watson's runs, a burning time. He's a big kid, and Dobbs has got great hands. And, granted, that game will be here instead of Green Bay, but Aaron Jones is a dangerous back out of the backfield. And then you got Rodgers against the Niners secondary that I think can be picked on and has holes. And then also, while you got that going on, then you got a rookie quarterback going up against, I think that somebody already made the comment, just one of the best secondaries. And Jair Alexander just turned off Justin Jefferson's water completely. Adrian Amos is a good coverage player. Rajoul Douglas is a jumbo corner with a ton of size. Savage is a great player going back to Maryland. He's the nickelback. They got another guy named Nixon who's playing well for them right now. So, I think, and they can put a little heat on the quarterback, right? I mean, you got Devontae Wyatt, you got Preston Smith, you got Kenny Clark, you got Quay Walker's got all the speed. So they're I don't like that matchup, to be honest. I mean, even though I think the Niners could bully Rodgers, get a lead, I just see Rodgers being able to make plays against the Niners secondary all day.
Yeah, in the past, the Niners have been able to sack Rodgers, but 2 years ago when that was last year. Freaking last season when they faced Rodgers played a really good game. The Niners lost. And if I remember correctly, Diamador Lenore started in that game and got roasted, and I don't think he played after that. So, yeah, I mean, if the Niners aren't getting pressure on Aaron Rodgers, he's going to go after Lenore like he did in the last game, and Packers are going to score points like the Raiders did. And, yeah, I mean, if the Niners are going to make Jarrett Stidham look like Aaron Rodgers, what are they going to do to Aaron Rodgers? My question with the Packers all season was their weapons, but it does seem like Watson and Dobbs are coming on, and they're pretty good rookie wide receivers.
Yeah, I mean, and Rodgers seems like the kind of guy that maybe operates best when he can play loose and not have to feel the pressure. And he would roll in here with lots of motivation and no pressure. Nobody's expecting them to win. They let it all hang out. I still think the 49ers would win the game, but I'd much, much prefer the bye. And you still may get Green Bay in the first round because I think Green Bay, but then you'd get them after they upset Dallas. That could be in the next round. And I don't know. The Niners are going to want to play in Green Bay. I just think they're going to want to play in Green Bay.
Well, it'll be an interesting matchup. Jason Singleton says, do we ignore Purdy's weak arm and just ride with it?
Ignore 32 points a game. How about that?
Yeah, I like that. Dustin says, if talent is the issue, let the compete and let the best quarterback win. Both will do great behind this offense. Kyle's job to work with both.
Once again, I mean, it's not that it's not good for the Niners. It's good for the Niners. It costs nothing, and you got two real good options there, and they're both great kids. It just, is it good for Trey?
LA Blue 9049 says, do you think Hufanga has become our Jimmy Garoppolo on defense where he seems to make the same mistake every week? Is he asleep during film study? No. What do you think's going on with Hufanga?
Well, I thought on the first touchdown, he got kind of burned with like kind of an eye discipline mistake. And I think ultimately Hufanga was a 5th-round pick because he's a little bit of a coverage liability down the field. He's got great desire. He knows the game plan, but I think he's leaning forward. I think he's awesome in the box, interrupting the mesh point against the run. But I think if you have a really good quarterback that's has a good rhythm with his receiver, Fonga's not the world's greatest coverage player in the deep quadrants of the field. So I hope that's his weakness. He knows it. Rodgers tested him down the middle last year in the playoff game. He stood up and made that play. He seems like the kind of player that would rise to the occasion, so I don't want to judge him, but there's been an awful lot of completions in his area. And now some people don't think that it's really him. Gibson, I don't think is a great coverage player. He's a productive interceptor, but I think Hufanga and Gibson can be picked on.
Pat Will says, Grant, love your content. Please more shows with Larry the Legend. By far the best guest you have along with your dad. Also, can you please remove the jarring intro and outro audio video portion of your clips? No. No. Just to piss you off. Wave 9 Mystic says, Packers are built like KC, but a better secondary. I've been telling you, Grant, the past 2 weeks. Aaron is due against us. Great running game, too. Yeah, and the Niners knocked the Packers were the 1 seed last year, and they won no playoff games. They had a bye week, and they hosted the Niners and lost, so there would be some revenge. Aaron won Super Bowl as a wild card, just saying. Wow, Wave 9 Mystic is calling a shot here. You're right. Keith Murphy says, I tell my friends that cheer for Green Bay that I think it favored us to play them in cold weather. I think SF is built more like a cold weather team. GB would be dangerous in the Bay. Well,
the Niners are going to be dangerous, too, on a fast surface because they're a pretty fast team.
They are. If you got to take shots deep to beat the Niners, Rodgers is going to take shots for sure. All right, final topic. All of a sudden, it's the Niners defense that needs fixing, that has issues, that is the problem. 34 points last week against the Raiders was surprising. I think most people thought they'd give up like 9. What is the adjustment DeMeco Ryans needs to make to get this defense back to playing like the number 1 defense in the league?
Well, I think they took him lightly. That's first and foremost. I just think it's human nature. You can't be up for every game. And I don't think they were up for this game. In the first half, Raiders ran for 5.2 yards per carry. The 49ers had 0 sacks, but only 2 pressures in the first half. They had 7 in the second half. Mm-hmm. So Shanahan referenced it after the game. The defensive front, this whole defense, it's the league's fastest linebackers. It's the league's best front, I think, deepest front and best coordinated front. The secondary is it's not a liability, but it's not the strength of the defense now that Mosley's out. So I would say that, it's all about getting more pressure up front.
Yeah.
Your coverage is your coverage. You're going with Lenore. We can talk about, Lenore could be picked. He's your guy. Instead of tearing him down, build him up because he's your guy. Build up Womack. Build up Charvarius. These are your guys, and they're all smart players. They're playing well, but it's all predicated on what gets done up front. So they got to get more heat on the quarterback. That may be meaning more games. I'll tell you one guy. We haven't seen any Kalia Davis. We haven't seen Givens come back. Givens is an important interior rusher. Kalia Davis, maybe you take a look at him in this Arizona game to see if he could help you out. But anything at all that you can do to get more rush up front, you got to do it because that's how the Niners are going to win. They got to put heat on the quarterback.
Yeah, I think DeMeco relies on his front four, that 4-man pass rush a little too much. I think it's easy to look good as a defensive coordinator when you're getting pressure with 4. Everything you do works when you get pressure with 4. But in this last game, they didn't. They didn't sack Jared Stidham one time. And I think when he called blitzes, it seemed to be effective. The blitz he called with Diamador Lenore, that was effective. I think he needs to bring more pressure. You can't – there's nothing – I mean, if you're not getting pressure on the quarterback, man coverage isn't going to work. Zone coverage isn't going to work. There's no right answer. And so you can't just hang back and be like, well, I'm going to live and die by Nick Bosa and the other 3 guys. No, bring pressure. And the nice thing about bringing 5 is it's harder to scramble against a 5-man rush because with a 4-man rush, there's always one gap. 5 blockers, 4 rushers, there's always one gap that a quarterback can run through. Not so if there's a 5th rusher and they're all in their lane. So
here's the thing. If you bring 5 or 6, you're giving the quarterback a defined look. You cannot give Rodgers a defined look. He'll carve you. So the key, I think, with Rodgers is bring 5, bring 6, bring 4, bring 3, mix it up.
Mix it up.
All kinds of games, all kinds of movement. Make their offensive linemen's heads spin. Make them communicate. I'd have all kinds of crazy overload.
Yeah, the games and stunts are a good way to create pressure without bringing extra rushers. Fangio showed that 10 years ago.
Yeah. And then even delayed blitzes from the backers.
Yeah.
If Rodgers is going to where Rodgers is dangerous is he has a little bit what Purdy has. He's got that pocket ability. He's not fast, but he's got pocket ability to move, and he knows where to move and where his receivers are. That's where you need to send the Greenlaws and the Warners on these delayed blitzes to make him pressured on his, off that second launch point. So I don't know. It's going to be a kitchen sink day. D'Amico's going to have to cook up every possible wrinkle he has to disrupt Rodgers' rhythm, because Rodgers is going to roll in rhythm.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. That's going to be very interesting. And it seems like if D'Amico Ryans can do it, if he can make the adjustments and get this defense playing at an elite level in the playoffs, he'll become a head coach next year. If not, he'll probably have to come back one more year and prove it again.
I think he's going to get a gig. I do, because I've seen the list. I've seen like 5 or 6 lists, and it seems like he's like the second or third name on almost every list. So his star has gotten to a point where I think you're right. They're going to need to have a big defensive effort. If they do show one in the playoffs, I think he gets a gig.
Ezio says both quarterbacks have no leverage to demand a trade. Keep them. There's years in their contract. Also, keep drafting and developing D linemen on the cheap and sign proven corners like Ward moving forward. Yeah, Niner fans don't want to trade Trey Lance. Think about it, though, guys. If you keep him on the bench for a third year, what are you doing to him? Is that making him better or worse? Is this the right back? If Brock Purdy is the starting quarterback, what are you keeping Trey for? Is he the right backup?
It's good for us. It's just not good for him. And you know what? People will note, and what you have to avoid, this is why communication is the ultimate here. You just got to keep the dialogue going, because he might want to be here. And if he wants to be here, then he's not going to complain. But what you don't want is Brock to win the job and have it be like September 2nd and Trey makes a demand to be traded at the beginning of the year, and you got a month and a half to the trade deadline, and it's got this huge distraction, and you're going to trade him for a reduced cost. I mean, you don't want to don't get played that way. Communicate with him, figure out what he wants, and if it's best for him to leave, then see what kind of offers you get.
Toby says, over-under of ums from Brock in the postgame presser. I've noticed that Brock answers every question the same way. You ask him a question, he goes, yeah. I like that, because he wants to give you a pause. Yeah, it's a fair question. Yeah, I understand what you mean. Yeah, I can answer that. Yeah. So I like that. He's got a can-do attitude with every question. I like it.
I hadn't noticed.
Yeah, every time. Brock, keep doing you. Larry, great stuff today. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. We got 2,000 people in the room, almost.
Awesome.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I'll be back tomorrow. Niners have a fairly big. This is it. Week 18. We didn't talk about the Cardinals for 1 second today, and I think that's fair. The Cardinals are a joke. That's what I want to say about the Cardinals. Anything you want to say about the Cardinals? They offended me.
No. Cardinals.
Go away.
Use some back besides McCaffrey. Oh, I do want to say this. I'm live streaming at 5 with the great Ned Coletti on the Krug Show channel, and we're going to talk a little bit about Brian Sabian going to the Yankees, going back to the Yankees. We'll talk a little
full circle.
Little Sabes talk with Coletti at 5.
Right.
So join me.
Because, I mean, the thing, this would be the time that Giants fans would be missing Sabian most, right? The good old days.
Could you imagine? Your architect is going across country and you had this kind of an off season.
Back when the Giants were the Giants, now the Giants are the A's West Bay A's. Anyway, this is a football show. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great time. I'll see you guys later. Go watch Larry.